Welcome, everyone. We are excited to have hundreds of people here for this exciting webinar from eSkill, Customized Skills Testing for Public Sector Agencies and All Organizations, presented by eSkill Client Success Manager Ethan Painter. We're excited to have you here. Make yourselves feel comfortable, and we'll dig right into it. So, many of you are here because you're frustrated by assessing candidates for roles in your county, city, school district, or other organization. Many counties, cities, and school districts are challenged because their hiring and training assessment content is curated by third parties in many instances. Or if you're not with a public sector agency, you may have content by another provider. Additionally, their skills test content is stagnant and outdated. The back and forth of curating content through a third party or a vendor that lacks customization can be time consuming, and it may grind your screening processes to a halt, creating time lapses between receiving and confirming content, as well as validating assessments, all of which makes your job harder. So today, we're excited that Ethan Painter, who is a client success manager here at eSkill, is going to talk about how he helps clients leverage the eSkill talent assessment platform for all of their skills testing needs, from written exams to oral interviews. He has an acute awareness of how delicate recruiting is in the public sector and offers insights and expertise about how to combat the daily hurdles of hiring. So Ethan's goal always in helping clients is to transform their recruitment process to work for you and for your organization, and you're going to find a lot of value in today's webinar. He's going to equip you with the valuable insights you can implement to start or improve your recruitment efforts. I'm Sheila Clefcorn, VP of Marketing for eSkill, and I'm your moderator today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ethan Painter. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Sheila. Good morning, everybody. As Sheila mentioned, my day job is CSM. My current job is home health nurse. My fiance just had surgery this past weekend, so it's been a long grind in the hospital and then just kind of the recovery process. If I look tired or sound tired, I am. So I apologize in advance. But we'll get through this and hopefully give you guys, some information that's helpful, but also just some things to think about. Really start to think, what are we doing? How could we be doing it better? What should we be doing? Things like that. So I know that the majority of the people here are kind of in the public sector, but Sheila let me know that there are going to be some organizations outside of that. So the things we talk about today are really all encompassing. So yes, there are probably more challenges that we see in the public sector, but when it comes to time and it comes to data, those are things that you're going to see in any organization. So we want to talk about how eSkill can help you combat those issues and help you leverage the system to kind of streamline any gaps in your recruitment process. Just real quickly for my background, so eSkill has been around for about we're going on 23 years, I think 2001. But eSkill's involvement in the public sector is actually very new. We started that in probably about 2018. In 2018, we had a couple of agencies, a couple counties, small cities, but nothing crazy. And then we had a client by the name of Contra Costa County. They're in Northern California, and we just got lucky that they had a very smart and strategic team in place. And so they started looking at eSkill and saying, okay, well, we really just came here for typing in some administrative testing, but like, what else can you guys do? And so once they kind of realized what our system was capable of, they started connecting the dots of, oh, well, we can start doing our oral exams. We can do all of our written exams. We can even do performance exams on this system. And so I created a very good relationship with them, and I really helped them, streamline their process. And from there, it became word of mouth. They were very helpful in getting our name out there because they're part of lots of organizations and they're part, meetings and all these different things where, public sector clients convene. And so they just kept saying, hey, have you heard about eSkill? Are you using eSkill? Those pen and paper tests, what are you doing? And so, we really owe a lot to them. But, since 2018, we have just kind of grown at a rapid pace in the public sector industry, from pretty much all of California, a good majority of California uses us, to, Texas and Chicago and Tennessee. And so we're really starting to ramp up our capabilities and presence in the public sector. So hopefully today will help you kind of understand, hey, here's what other clients are doing already that are just like us. So, maybe we should think about doing that. Okay. So the problems we solve. So one of the problems is you kind of feel like your hands are tied, right? The biggest hurdle that you guys probably have is content. How do we have content that's relevant? How do we have content that's validated? If it's not validated, none of your boards or, your cities or your Office of Education, they're not going to let you send out a test, right? If you send out an invalid test, you're going to get hit with a lawsuit probably, or you're going to get hit with a bunch of formal complaints from candidates. So the biggest issue right now is content. For many public sector agencies, creating assessment content is currently done with a third party. So there are some third parties out there like CPS or CodeS. As Sheila mentioned, if you're in the private sector, you just have other vendors, SHL, Criteria Corp, whoever it may be. But the other thing is you also lack a hands-on approach. So when you use these third parties or use these other vendors, a lot of times you don't really have a say in your content. You just kind of say, well, here's the job description, here's kind of what I'm hoping to have, and then you just hope that they hit the mark, right? They send you a test and say, okay, here you go, good luck. And sometimes you just have to live with it. So that's definitely something that can be burdensome and kind of a hindrance to your recruiting process. And then also your content is often stagnant and outdated. One of the biggest things that I hear is, yeah, we've been using this test since 2002, or we've been using this, for the last 10 years and haven't really changed anything. So, content security comes into play and things like that. And so that's definitely a big challenge. And just as a quick side note, this might, give you some intrigue into eSkill. So like I said, we're only 5 years into kind of this public sector journey. This year, we'll be starting a content advisory board. So we selected some clients from multiple levels in the public sector, so county, city, school districts, and we're going to get feedback from them to help build out content. So that's something that's going to be, big focus in 2023. That will just continue to expand our library that already has 70,000 questions in it. Okay. The other problem is data. Data is power. So eSkill offers over 800 standardized skills tests plus job-specific tests that you can completely customize. But what that means is you have automatic access to the data that's coming through. So once a candidate takes a test and it's submitted in the eSkill system, you automatically have access to it. You don't have to wait, 10 days for a Scantron to get graded or for your third party to get back to you. It's right there, and it's readily available to where you can automatically, get into the system and start doing what you need to do. And then time, like I said, public sector, private sector, mom and pop shop, who cares? Time is a commodity right now, and you only have so many hours in a day. And so, if you can leverage a system like eSkill to make your life a little bit easier and save on some time, then we definitely want to do that. Okay. All right. So obviously, like I said, your time is valuable. When you don't own your assessment content, it does a couple of things. It brings your processes to a halt. So I have a lot of clients that still, I would say a lot of public sector, they don't just use one vendor, right? They have a couple different ones, and that's completely fine. It works for them. But their biggest gripe with other vendors is that there's a lot of back and forth. They don't have the ability to just go in and create a test. They have to, give them some edits, and then, there's just a lot of moving parts, right? So it just kind of grinds everything to a halt. And, with the amount of recruitments that are in public sector right now and the inability to find, viable candidates that meet the pre-quals, you don't have time to, slow things down. So, that is one thing that not owning your assessment content kind of, brings. And it just creates a lot more work on your end, from receiving and confirming to validating. So like I said, if you're having to work with a third party, that kind of creates issues. It also limits you from changing questions over time. So like I mentioned, if you're still using content from 2002, it's probably because there's no other content available. And so you just kind of stuck with it, right? So with eSkill, because our content library is so vast, we're going to help solve pretty much all three of these points. Because you can be hands-on in the system, because you can do everything that you need to do directly in our system, then you get to work at your own pace. So if you have a quick recruitment, you're able to go in there and knock it out. If you have a recruitment that doesn't post for 2 months, okay, well then we'll revisit it, but you still dictate your future, right? Dictate your success, because you can handle the timeline as you see fit. And then, when we talk about, receiving, confirming data, being able to share content, being able to share that content with your SMEs or hiring managers is pretty easy in the system. It's as simple as sending them a link of the test, or we can send them a PDF version. Any way that you want to share, information internally, we have the capability. And then obviously being able to change questions over time. So test content security is very crucial in the public sector and maybe even some of the private sector. And so you can't continue to ask the same questions over and over. Otherwise, it's inevitably going to end up on the internet, right? So it inevitably end up in somebody else's hands. So because we have so many questions in the system, you can constantly, churn out, content. So, maybe use it for a whole year just to kind of keep things apples to apples. But after that, let's sub out some of those questions. And so, you're able to do that. And the other thing too is, we can kind of talk about this with the data part, but if you have questions that aren't performing very well, then let's change those, right? There's a lot of times where, with other vendors, or, if you're using pen and paper, you don't have that customization feature. So you're kind of stuck with the content you have. And sometimes those questions aren't good questions. They're not providing you any data. If everybody's getting it right, that's not helping us. And so, being able to interchange those and constantly keep your test fresh is definitely a big perk in the eSkill system. All right, data is king. So kind of touched on this a little bit. If you haven't noticed yet, I'm a little scatterbrained, so I kind of jump in, in and out of the slides here. But your biggest job as a recruiter, as an analyst, public sector, private sector, mom and pop, is to create usable data, right? You're using skills testing, or you're using behavioral assessments, or using any type of testing to give you a data point on that candidate to help you make a more informed decision. That's your ultimate goal. And so with eSkill, we make that very easy for you. We make that, like I said, readily available. We have all types of reporting in the system. So for public sectors, you guys have very special reporting. Sometimes you guys still use raw score. We have that rather than percentage score. You have the question statistics report that we have in the system. So it lets you know how how your exams are performing. So like I just mentioned, if you have questions that everybody's getting right, we need to know that, and not just say, well, it's just part of the test. We're all about quality over quantity at eSkill, and so we're going to make sure we're asking good questions that are going to provide us a specific data point for that candidate. With eSkill, you have the data you need to determine cutoff scores, item performance, and completion rates. So cutoff scores are a big one in the public sector. Obviously, you guys have to kind of find out, where we stop. And so, we give you all that data to determine those cutoff scores, to figure out, who goes on the eligibility list, however long, whatever it may be. Item performance we just talked about, and then also completion rates. So this is becoming a big deal. Obviously, candidates are I shouldn't say very anything. They have a lot of options right now, right, in the workforce. And so we need to make sure we're putting out a product that is conducive to the candidate and is going to give them a good candidate experience. So that's why I always say quality over quantity. Sometimes in the past, we've had, tests that are 120 questions. And every time I see that, I'm like, my head just explodes. Like, why are we asking so many? So we try to bring it down to more, let's go, 30, 40 questions. If you're a call center client, we're looking at 15 questions. And so, candidate experience is very crucial to our process. And so we actually have a report now that shows completion rates to help us understand, are we having a lot of drop off? Is this test too long? Is this test too hard? Is this a cumbersome, part in the recruitment? Whatever it may be, we give you all that data. Okay, so when I say data is king in the eSkill system, it really is. It's all readily available for you. The other thing for public sectors, we also integrate with NeoGov. So NeoGov is obviously an ATS partner of ours. If you don't know how integrations work, it's pretty simple. Essentially, a candidate takes a test and eSkill records that score in our system, and then we automatically push it over into NeoGov. Same thing if it's iSIMS or Workday or JobDiva, whatever it may be on the private sector side. But for NeoGov, you guys are all pretty familiar with that. We do integrate with them, and that just goes back to time. You don't have time to sit there and manually enter in scores into every candidate. That takes up a lot of time. That was actually one of the first problems we saw with Contra Costa County, because they were having, recruitments of 500 people, and they're like, I just spent a whole day just entering in scores. So with that integration, we were able to fix that problem pretty quickly and make life just a little bit easier for you guys. Okay, let's talk about case studies. Let's talk about some of the clients we have. So I mentioned counties, cities, and school districts. We have pretty much the full range. School districts are actually a little bit newer within the public sector. COVID made us pretty much the only option for them because a lot of school districts were still using pen and paper testing or Scantron testing, what you guys say. And so obviously with COVID, we couldn't just fill up a room with 40, 50, 100 people. We had to be able to still test them, but we had to do it kind of in a remote way. So a lot of school districts in California came on with eSkill right around the summer of that first summer of COVID. And so they've been super great. They've been very innovative. I've been very proud of them because they did things the same way for so long, right? And so the idea of using technology and using a whole new system, like everybody's eyes are about to bulge out of their head. But once they kind of realize the benefits, like I mentioned, time, data, and content, they're like, well, why haven't we been doing this whole time? So one of our golden childs, I like to call for the school districts, is Poway Unified. So they had a very young recruiting team. They had a young director that was very forward thinking, and he said, here's the platform, I paid for it, go figure out how to use it, right? And obviously I helped them with that, but it really, it does still take the client initiative to, really maximize the platform. But, he took this very young team, Advanced in Recruiting, they started saying, okay, well, how can we leverage this platform? So it started with just multiple choice exams, what they call written exams. Then it was like, oh, well, you guys have a voice and video feature. Can we do our oral exams on this as well? So then we said, okay, yeah, let's do oral exams. Then it came to, well, what about all of our writing samples? Can we do that? Yes, we can. Easy enough. We use a free response question and basically become a vehicle for your writing samples. And so, they were a little, I think the first year they said, yeah, we might do like 1,000 scores. And so, we had no idea. I was like, okay, sure. After 2.5 years, they've done 12,500 completed exams. So they quickly realized the capabilities of the system and they started to leverage them. And we have case studies like that. Poway is obviously one of the school districts. I would say Orange County, from a county perspective, they are our biggest user of voice and video and kind of team scoring, which is team scoring allows you to utilize reviewers. So you guys have your oral exams, right? And you have reviewers or panel boards. Now they can review in the system, assign a score, and keep it moving. So Orange County is a big user of oral exams across all of our clients. Are the biggest user of the voice and video. And then I would say another one of the innovative groups we have is City of Santa Ana. Again, a very young team, very innovative team, and they've really leveraged the platform. So the platform can do whatever you want it to do within the types of recruitment you have. It's a willingness to make that change. I know that's sometimes a big ask, but I can promise you it really pays off, and a lot of these clients are a testament to that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about kind of owning your assessment library. We talk about owning content, we talk about owning the process and being able to streamline it. So ideally, this is a process that you should be having kind of with every recruitment. If you're not, maybe we should start asking some questions on Skype. Hey, are we doing this? Should we be doing this? Because you definitely should. So actually, one of the analysts from Poway, she kind of put this together for me when we presented this at CSPCA, which is a school district conference. She just kind of talked about kind of the life cycle of your exam, right? So you have your existing exam, you have the personnel commission that has to review it. Okay, so you can't just put together, you and I can't just put together a test and send it out. There's lots of checks and balances. Obviously, if you need to make any changes, you can. Then you have a subject matter expert review it, and then hopefully you're doing some sort of validation. That is something that was obviously very helpful for Poway, that they had basically an IO psychologist on staff, and she loved all this. So all of their tests are validated because she can do it herself. So she went in and tested the incumbents, created a validation study, and then they felt good about it. test it on their candidates, do an examination analysis. We're talking about, you know, are certain questions performing, are they not? And then you kind of start the whole cycle over again. So this is something that in the past was very cumbersome for them. And now it's becoming very easy because they can quickly share information with the personnel commission, the subject matter experts. They can very quickly pull the reports to understand, okay, how are certain questions performing? How are they not performing? And then obviously they're able to very easily test all their candidates. So this is a process that she said used to take weeks, and now it's taking days, and maybe not even that long. So that's something that if you're not doing this, you should be thinking about it. But if you are doing this and you know how long it takes you, you know how burdensome it is, think about using eSkill to kind of leverage that. Okay. So kind of the overall benefits as we wrap this up. The benefits from eSkill, and again, this is kind of from Poway's perspective, but you know, being able to easily coordinate between your personnel commissions in your districts, your principals and your analysts, you know, whatever it may be. Ability to edit, adjust exams for future recruitments. So, you know, like I said, some clients, they'll change them every year. Sometimes they'll change them after every recruitment. Not big changes, but you know, just you know, subtle changes to where, you know, again, if the question isn't performing very well, let's get rid of it. Or you know, if we just need a change, then we can do that. Another benefit is better candidate fit. So, you know, and this goes for everybody, but, you know, being able to deploy a skills test is again just giving you data, right? So if you can gain data at the very front of your recruitment process, that's very powerful, right? And so if we know that, hey, these people don't have the minimum qualifications or the minimum skills we need, you know, hard skills for day one, we don't need to interview them. We don't need to push them through the system. And so, you know, having a validated and useful skills test is going to help you create a better candidate fit. And then also we've talked about more control over content and job relatedness. You know, you guys have complete control over content. We also help you with content. Like I said, we're about to start a content advisory board, so that's going to just kind of boost up the content that we have available. And then decrease time to hire. It's getting a little bit better, I'd say, as we ease into Q1 or ease through Q1, but last year was a disaster. You know, the candidate pools were so small, and if you created any barriers to your recruitment process, they were gone and gone forever. And so, you know, a lot of clients that use eSkill, they said, you know, it was a blessing to them to be able to, you know, customize the test and make it a little bit shorter, and you know, be able to do things all online, you know, so people don't take a full day off of work. It really helped them with their candidates, their candidate pool, and then also internally to kind of decrease their time to hire. Why eSkill made the difference. So this is coming straight from Poway. You know, strategic consulting, you have a dedicated CSM like myself, so we're basically an extension of your team. We'll help as much as you need, or we'll be here in case of emergency, right? But you have that dedicated person. Customized tests and questions, again, 70,000 questions in the system. You can pretty much do whatever you want. I jumped ahead of myself here. And just a partnership approach. So, you know, I view this as I'm grateful to have every client that comes on board, right? Contra Costa County, they'll always be my baby because they basically started this journey. We wouldn't be having this webinar today without Contra Costa County. And so I appreciate every single client that adds something to us and to me and can, you know, learn to leverage the system in a certain way, because it just creates a very symbiotic relationship. And so we really approach every one of our clients, especially in the public sector, kind of with a partnership approach. Because another thing is, you guys are making big changes. You might still be using Scantrons today in 2023, and so coming onto a test platform could be asking a lot. And so we definitely want to help kind of ease those concerns and ease you into it, but also, you know, get you to where you need to be with recruiting. All right, that's all I have. I think I probably went about 6 minutes longer than Sheila wanted me to.
It's all good. It's been great information that you've shared, and thank you all. We have hundreds of people on the webinar. We're so glad to have your attention. We want to make some time for questions. So look at the control panel on your right, scroll down to where it says chat, and put any questions that you have into the chat. We have a couple that have come in over email. And Ethan, talk a little bit about what it's like to get started with eSkill. What's involved?
So getting started is pretty easy. And a lot of other vendors will say, oh yeah, it's super easy, no big deal, and they don't really deliver on that, right? But with eSkill, it is fairly easy. The initial setup is pretty quick. So during that sales process, super quick. We can get you set up within, a couple hours, and sometimes in an hour if we don't have anything going on. But then in terms of getting content and getting users, that's all something that either I can help with or a CSM can help with, or you have the ability to do. So obviously you have a full team of, recruiters and analysts. They need certain access to the system. That's all something that's easy to set up. And then obviously, starting to put tests together. If you guys have your own paper test already that are validated, then we can get those into the system. So I would say in one word, it's very easy and seamless. That's 2 words, sorry. But it's definitely not a hindrance, and it's definitely a little bit different than what you might be used to.
Great, thank you, Ethan. Again, put your questions in the chat. We'd love to hear them. So eSkill is really focused on making sure that we lighten your load, that we help you make the process of recruiting candidates into your organizations as quick, easy, and painless as possible. So having the ability to customize questions is a real differentiator. And Ethan talked about how hard it is when you have questions that have been given to you by your district or by your state or by your municipality. Can you talk about how this is used outside of a school district, maybe with a police department or another organization, Ethan?
Yeah, so the principles are still the same. One of the big things that we have in our capabilities is what we call the test author. And so the test author allows you to upload your own content. So when we talk about police, Sheila, that's very technical skills, very very honed in skills. So we're not just talking about attention to detail and multitasking. Like, it's very specific to a sheriff's office or police department. So we're able to create as technical questions as you want or get as broad as you want. And so that having that piece, the test author piece, has been very helpful as well for all agencies, from counties, cities, school districts, to even private sector agencies. A lot of call centers use the test author. And so it creates a broader range of content for you at your disposal. Right now you're kind of in this box based off of whatever third party you're using, whatever vendor you're using. So using eSkill is going to allow you to really expand the capabilities and the types of recruitment you can do. And if you're a county, the types of departments that can utilize eSkill, such as your sheriffs or police.
Thank you, Ethan. And one of the other benefits is that you have a client service manager who is responsible for helping you customize it, not just the assessments or the exams themselves, but also the process. And so you have the benefit of people who have seen it done in other school districts, in other public sector agencies, and we can give you suggestions on how to speed it up for your time, how to customize it based on the number of people you have in your organization, and how many candidates that you need to get through the system. It's a challenging economy right now, and as Ethan said, it's always important to think about how can we provide the best candidate experience that is going to help you get the best quality candidates into your organization. So Ethan, can you talk a little bit about how you've helped these organizations with their process, not just their content?
Yeah, so everybody's process is a little bit different, right? But at the same time, they're kind of all a little bit the same. So I would say the biggest, obviously the biggest thing was just bringing them onto a remote testing platform, because there's so many agencies that were still on pen and paper tests, or they were still, having everybody, take a test over Zoom or, whatever it may be. And so, when it comes to processes, the most obvious one was, just having a remote option, right? And like I said, COVID really sped that up, and we really didn't have a choice. And then once people realized, oh, well, we can create a virtual process, we can create a process that is remote, there's no going back. Because we checked all those boxes. We gave them new content, we gave them time in their days, and we gave them data. So kind of to answer your question, Sheila, with the processes, it's whatever you need it to be. So we have some clients that, you know, they have a test and then they have an interview and that's it. We have some clients that it's a test, an interview, another test, and then, you know, they move on. So everybody's recruitment process is a little bit different. And so we're able to, you know, kind of accommodate and kind of mold our system around your process, right? So you let us know, hey, here's our process. How can we streamline it? Do we really need to have that interview? Do we really need to have that phone screen? Or can we use eSkill? And so that's just the biggest thing is we can mold it around your process and make it work however you see fit. So it's not necessarily a one size fits all. It's truly a customized solution. That's kind of our biggest calling card at eSkill is providing a customized solution.
Great. And thank you, Ethan. How are eSkills assessments used in training as well as recruitment?
Yeah, so we have a couple of clients that use us for kind of learning and development. Stanford Healthcare is one of my clients that predominantly uses it for learning and development. They're actually starting to use it a little bit more for recruiting. But because you have that real-time feedback in the system, it's a very good tool, right? So in Stanford's case, they'll test on the front end, and then obviously, you know, they hire them and they go into this kind of training class, and then they have this whole curriculum. I think it's like 9 weeks. And then after that curriculum, they'll test them again, you know, different content, but still same subjects. And so that is definitely something that is becoming more prominent these days, especially when we talk about upskilling. You know, it's because of the workforce situation and because of the candidate pool, it's like, okay, well, now let's start looking internally. How can we leverage people's skills that they already have and kind of move them across positions? And so learning and development is kind of is quickly, you know, coming to the forefront. Not that it hasn't been already, but it's really starting to become a focus as we kind of change our idea of, you know, where we should be getting candidates and what the ideal candidate is.
Thank you, Ethan. Thank you all for attending our webinar today. If you're interested in learning more about how you can leverage eSkills talent assessment platform to accelerate and make your recruitments more valuable, as well as train and upskill your existing employees, we encourage you to reach out on our website at eskill.com, request a demo, and Ethan or one of our other CSMs will walk you through the process in detail and help you customize it for your own situation. Thanks for your time today. We appreciate it. We know your time is valuable, and we're eager to help whenever you're ready. Thank you. Join us again at eskill.com.